of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Awesome. You have approval of the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda of September 3rd.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you, Molly, for taking those notes. Hey, guys. Any add-ons or anything different? Okay, you good? Good?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Do we need to do a vote on that, or we get
Yeah.
roll call vote? Or-
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay.
All right, moving on to okay guys, so first bullet point there, board awareness of conversations regarding TIF map on accuracy of who's actually in and out of the DDA district. Upon some investigation from our consultant, Annette Knowles, there was a realization that our TIF map that we have that's been constructed later in the years doesn't match the original TIF map as I understand it. There are 6 parcels in question currently that are being investigated for, are they in the TIF? Are they out of the TIF? And for how long have we been dealing with this issue with these property tax ID numbers? A meeting had been set between the chair, Annette Knowles as our consultant, and John Gormley as our attorney, to take the next step to try to understand what it is, why it is, and how we can move forward with correcting it. I believe in full transparency, and that the board, because we make the decisions together, should be aware of this, and this is the first time it's being brought up. So, does anyone have any questions on that?
So Annette and John are working on it.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And so the Zoom meeting happened. Annette and John had talked about what he sees versus what she had saw, because I don't think originally she had privilege to or an understanding that another map existed. And so then his map was a little bit different. And then we were able to zoom in and look at exact parcels and try to make some distinctions on what's in, what's out. And from that conversation, a follow-up email had occurred, and we've isolated it down to 6 parcels. Is that correct, Annette?
6 or 4.
4 to 6.
It might be 4.
Okay, I'm sorry, 4 to 6, and that's tax ID numbers, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's where we sit. From here, John, it's on Mr. Wormley's desk to investigate to consult with us on what to do next. Is that a fair statement? Okay.
Super. The only thing, it brought to mind a thought I had, that it would be nice if, like, once a year, I don't know, I think probably the township would provide this to us, or maybe the village, if we as the board got a spreadsheet of every parcel that's in the TIF district that includes the assessed value and the estimated property taxes total, as well as what portion of that total comes to the DDA. And we could also use that when we do our budget, because it kind of helps us know what the tax revenue is going to be. Nice if we had that like once a year. I mean, we may have had it somewhere along the line, but I don't think I've seen such a thing in years. It seems like an easy thing that maybe the township or village could produce, I would think.
I totally get the benefit and value. Who does it and when they do it and executing it is the key. So in your experience in that, being a consultant for other communities, is that something that,
So there's correct me if I'm wrong, you guys use BSNA software? There should be a template formatted already into the software that allows you to run specific reports that pertain to DDAs. So that would be the place to start.
okay,
And that was the list I was using.
okay.
It's officially called the DDA roll, or the DDA tax roll. And that was the list I was using to make that comparison, to see map versus spreadsheet.
And then, I got the idea of what to do, then the question of who would do it. Is this something that comes from the township, or is it something we have our clerk do?
I obtained the report from the clerk, so that would be a first step to
So Debbie has the capability of going in and
She
pulling
should,
this,
yeah.
okay. Okay,
Just
actually,
be
I
a handy
believe
thing
it's
for us to review once a year, or at least have, you know.
well, and that's been her consultant from the beginning of making the as I understand it, the inventory list and the DDA list is just like a phone book. The minute you do it, somebody, CJ's Pizza's gone, so
Right,
it's
yeah.
it's wrong.
It's a point in time.
So definitely a benefit and value doing it every year, John, I totally agree. Okay. Any other questions on that right now, guys? Okay, moving on. So, the next piece here involves Annette, and if you see some cool 3M, things up on the wall, we're gonna do a little brainstorming. One of the things that we can get in place now, guys, as we are moving forward with the potential of moving forward with the Michigan Main Street is, whether we get some taglines or vision statements. And then the benefit and value is we start to identify who we are as Stockbridge and what we wanna do for the future of Stockbridge, okay? And was that enough to get you
Yeah, sure.
rolling?
Yeah.
Okay.
So working with Jerry, we put together a little plan of how we wanted to conduct, the order of business today. This may seem repetitive for people who've been on the board for a really long time, but it's always good, I think, to check your pulse and see if you've made progress, what progress you've made, and then be able to, ultimately, by the end of today, we should have the bones of a two-year work plan ready. And that will enable you to move forward with budgeting and planning so that you're being more proactive and less reactive, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So I always like to start these conversations with doing a little bit of the SWOT analysis. And I'm gonna look at this in two ways. The SWOT analysis that we're gonna do in just a couple seconds is not just about the downtown in general, but organizationally as well. So when we talk about strengths, we wanna talk about what's good about the downtown, but we also wanna talk about like this group of people and how you feel you're functioning as a DDA, because that will influence some of the other, the other actions that we're gonna take further on. So, I'm gonna kinda try to keep a good time so that we're not here more than, I think the time we forecasted was 4:30. I wanna be done before 4:30, so I can hightail it back home before the traffic hits. But if we're here till then, we're here till then. But I'm gonna try to expedite this conversation as quickly as we can. So I wanna start out with the S word. So above the line, we'll put things about downtown that we feel are strengths, and then underneath, we'll talk about what we feel organizationally. We don't have to do those. So if a thought comes to your mind now about what one is, just start shouting out, because I can organize them. At the end of all of this exercise, what I'm gonna do for you is put together a report that summarizes all of this. So I'll take the sheets back home, type them in a format that's real readable that you can then use as a document to pass on to new board members or other folks who might be interested in learning about what plans you are considering to as you move forward. And as that type of document, just because it's prepared today doesn't mean it's like etched in stone. There's always room for a little bit of play, but ultimately what we hope this will do is provide you with enough information so that as you plan forward, you can reduce and eliminate some of the, additional plan amendments and things like that you have happened, the more advanced planning you do, the less likely it will be to have those amendments later on. So we're just trying to get ahead of the game here. So let's start with S, and nobody be shy.
S stands for strengths, correct?
Correct.
Schools. Now, they're not technically in the DDA district, but that doesn't matter, correct?
If it's a community strength, I'm gonna put it under the downtown as a whole,
Okay.
because that is an appeal to the community. But when it comes to like the downtown itself, that will influence let's say a potential resident, or maybe a conversion of an upper floor building to, some kind of residence. So strong schools help attract those kind of people, so yes, it's relevant.
What is remind me below the
Oh,
line?
the organization. So
Okay.
organizationally, it'll be like, hey, we've got a really diverse group of talented people who are very committed, right? That's an asset or a strength. So,
Township Hall is a strength. The fact that Lakeland Trails goes through town.
all right, I'll help you out here. Location.
You see that as a strength?
Yes.
Okay.
And when you say that, you're thinking like proximity to Ann Arbor, Lansing, Jackson, is that what you're thinking?
Smack dab in the middle.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Your historic buildings are
What was
incredible
that,
asset.
that last one?
And it also ties in with the
Historic buildings.
Historic buildings. Sorry, my penmanship as I get older.
Well, I just can't see.
Going down in the tube, so I can read this, don't worry about reading it. So the historic buildings you have in town, very rare, and I think we realized this when, Bob Gibbs also came out and did his bit of consulting with you on the market analysis, that having a town square is a very unique feature. Not all communities have them, and it's something also tying back with the town, the township hall being in the downtown. Having that public space, that large public space with a landmark building on it is very rare in Michigan. So.
I say pharmacy.
Okay. So would you say you have an adequate business mix in addition to having a pharmacy? So do you feel like there is a good business mix in the downtown?
Personally, I don't. What's one of our strict weaknesses, in my opinion?
There aren't other than 2 dentists, there aren't repeat businesses, but there aren't enough businesses that we need.
Okay,
No vet, no grocery store.
all right, I'm
Yeah.
overlapping here, but.
No bet.
What is that? That was for you, I knew you were gonna say
Thank
that.
you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I stole that from
It's
you.
my ongoing.
No. Grocery. Other than.
Oh, can we
I
go
mean, we
to?
can put a lot of no,
Right, yeah.
there's a big list there.
Well, that's,
Doctor's office, that's a big no.
so grocery stores are typically anchors in a downtown if you have one.
Yes.
So not having a place where people can get food locally is a weakness.
Huge.
Yes. Yeah.
Although having plain food market or plain market
Flea market.
is a strength because we can we do have somewhere to at least go to get fresh vegetables and,
For sure.
a few
yeah.
staples.
Alright, so. Okay, anything else?
I like our park. I think
Yeah.
that offers a lot to people, to a lot of different people.
Veterans, is that the name?
Yeah.
of it?
The big one's Bats Park, yeah.
The parks, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Is there
how
a
are
name
you-
for the small one? I'm sorry. Has that even been named?
I have to put a sign up, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Alright, so
What's
how
it
are
called?
the amenities in that park? What amenities are in that park that would act as a draw?
Tennis
For people.
court, what do you call
Playground
the skate
stuff.
thing?
Playground.
Playground,
Playground,
Skate ramp.
skate ramp,
Volleyball.
restrooms.
volleyball, basketball.
Is
It's
that the
important.
only place for public restrooms?
No, we added one at the trailhead.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's the only 2.
okay.
I like the downtown areas walkability. So like, I just like going for walks downtown.
What about the,
Oh, and parking. There's a lot of parking
there's a lot
lots.
of parking,
Yes.
yeah,
Which is rare.
okay.
Um,
What about I know we talked about some streetscape stuff earlier today, but what do you feel about the ambiance?
Small town charm,
Okay.
there's different ways, I'm sure there's 1,000 ways to say that.
So there's charm and then there's aesthetics. So what do we think about the aesthetics of the downtown?
Mixed.
Mixed. I see weaknesses and strengths.
Yeah, that's why we
Okay.
gotta make those a downtown beautification project
Yeah.
to fix that up,
Okay.
move in the right direction.
And what, tell me about the O thing below.
So in that case, I wanna talk about you as an organization.
This organization?
This organization, the DDA,
Got it.
what is strong about the DDA, if anything?
It's getting stronger.
Okay, so you're on the swing,
It's-
you're on the upswing.
Yeah, it's finding its place in the community and starting to move.
Okay, so has there been inaction to action?
Yes.
Okay. So we're moving from,
The communication with the DDA to the actual people they represent.
I was just gonna say, they're making themselves known to the community.
Right.
Or the DDA is making itself known,
Right.
which didn't happen.
do you feel you have resources available to you to accomplish, not everything you want to accomplish, we never have enough money for that, but do you feel you have enough resources, whether human or fiscal, to accomplish goals? Some goals, not all goals, but some goals.
Well, we are very fortunate, and the strength of the DDA is that we have the budget and money that we do. Cause I recognize that some communities don't have any of
Some
this.
communities have nothing.
Yeah, Manchester, nothing.
Michigan is only one of 6 states. Michigan, Georgia, Colorado, Florida. I think Florida has them, where their DDAs can exist. Most states don't have downtown development authorities. So downtown revitalization is more often accomplished through volunteerism and fundraising than in Michigan. So you are very fortunate. Some communities' budgets are, $40,000-$50,000 a year.
Yeah,
And
we've had our,
that's funds that are raised through donations and through other things in the community. So the fact that you have that TIF
since the 80s is huge.
is a good thing.
Yeah, and our funding for that. The other,
Understanding though that it has limitations
sure,
because it's tax money and can only be spent on projects that have a public purpose. So,
okay.
But that's not bad.
that's not bad.
I don't know, cause there's so many things you could do for public purpose.
Yeah. So, anything else?
Since joining, I've noticed that you all are a very passionate group. So I think that's a strength.
Didn't used to be. People just got disgusted in these meetings and wouldn't come back and would say terrible things about the DDA. So I think that the image has changed greatly.
And there is something in the background that we have that you may not know we have. Cause think about the Harvest Moon Festival 2020. I was able to network out to 30 community members and get them to volunteer. So I think the volunteers exist. We're just figuring out how to get them involved. So, the key thing to that is Main Street, Michigan Main Street. And then the other thing for us is things like pump tracks. A pump track committee shouldn't just be these board members. We can't get everything done. We need the buy-in from the community. So it's exciting to have people like Dan, who we reach out to be involved in these things as well. So it's out there. We either just don't recognize it.
We have to
I
tap
recognize
into
it because I do a lot of the networking with these people. They're out there.
And we have to tap into it going
Absolutely.
forward, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm gonna, like I said, if you come up with something that I need to go back, I'll go back, but we're gonna move on, cause I'm gonna, 5 minutes or so each, so.
Okay.
Weaknesses, we already talked about, business mix isn't ideal.
Yep.
A grocery store, for example, what other things do you find?
Narrow business hours.
So people are not open when you want to shop.
There's no anchor businesses here, like a Jiffy or like a, the big ones.
So
Yeah.
anchor in the sense of an employer, or anchor in the sense of a draw to get people to come downtown?
Anchor in the sense of someone that employs a lot of people.
Okay,
Yeah. employee.
Yeah. Yeah, cause if you've got,
large
50
employer.
staff members, they gotta eat somewhere.
Right.
We don't, that doesn't
Yeah,
exist.
that's true. Daytime population normally supports businesses in the day. So if you have a
Correct.
large population base, those are people running out to get coffee, running out to get lunches, picking up flowers for their wife on their way home or their husband. Evening hours is appealing more to residents, cause 70 whatever % of the population now works.
Yes.
So we're not always available during the day, and so when we're looking for that third place at night, that's when we're going to the local pubs, and that's when we wanna have the nighttime entertainment and yada, 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 so. No large employers is a detriment to the daytime, which is probably converse with this, because the business owners wanna be open during the day and home at night.
That's right.
That's a problem most downtowns never solve, so I'm just.
Right.
Yeah. But we'll jot it down. Anything else, weaknesses? So, what about, availability? And I'm just, like I said, writing stuff down as it comes into my, for local investment. So it seems like, some of the building conditions
Yes.
need investment, and is that investment available locally?
What do you mean?
For renovations, or bringing buildings up to stock, or
Is it available
modernizing?
locally?
Meaning, to the local residents. So one of the things that, the downtown nationwide are trying to do now is, instead of inviting, let's promote Stockbridge to all of Southeast Michigan and try to attract developers to come in and rehab our buildings and
Okay,
that.
okay,
The trend now is trying to get the locals to invest. So is that available in this community?
okay.
I don't think so.
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying availability
Got it.
for local investment, so
I
how,
have a couple, sort of, but.
Well, I don't even know how you would do that.
yeah, well, I'm just, like I said, these are things that we just need to be cognizant of
They don't exist.
that might influence or impact your ability to be successful.
I'm thinking of 4 buildings that have been redone by local people.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So they do exist.
Like Todd Bias does wonderful work.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
And then I'm thinking of the old lettuce warehouse out on
Yeah.
South M52. And what's gonna happen to the old Ransom's building? That's gonna be improved.
Okay, so we have some of that happening
Yeah,
now.
we
So
do.
Molly's right.
Somebody's bought the grocery store?
Yeah.
Oh, and what's that going to be? Or are you not allowed to
It's
say?
not going to be
kind
a
of a-
grocery store.
No, I'm just curious if it's,
I'm not sure about the zoning right now, but, I think they wanted to use it for storage.
oh, okay.
But I know they'll make the building look
The
better.
building will look better.
And isn't that a blessing? So, yeah. What, I'm not sure, but I'm thinking of, gosh, when was it? 20 years ago? We were ahead of the crowd in doing this, but we did have our streetscape modernized.
Okay,
And it was really darling, and now it's old.
okay. So that's a
our
life
s-
cycle question?
Our sidewalks have cracks, our sidewalks need to be tended to.
Okay, I would not call that a weakness, I would call that an opportunity.
Bless you.
Oh, interesting.
Whoop, I'm just gonna put that up here. And the reason I say that is because all those streetscape amenities have a life cycle.
Okay.
And so if you don't need to do one every single year, right?
No.
So it's reaching the end of its life cycle. That presents you an opportunity to upgrade again. That I would not call that a weakness at all.
Okay.
I would say that, because we're talking about it, we had a conversation about that today, that that's an opportunity for you to take care of a potential weakness. Because it's not awful.
Yeah.
It's
not perfect.
aging, it's not perfect, it's aging, but it's not awful. I would not call that a weakness. I would call
Okay.
that an opportunity.
Interesting. Good.
I would say a weakness for the organization is that business owners in the TIF are hard to convince to join the DDA
Yeah.
as of late.
Okay, so interest in participation.
I'm talking about on a board member
Yeah,
level.
as a board member, yeah.
Okay.
Do you think they would volunteer here to get a better understanding of what a DDA is and does if presented an opportunity, therefore becoming a board member? It's hard to become a board member without any knowledge or experience or being involved, and business owners are busy running their businesses. And so if we offered them opportunities to do this, to invoke that more, would they step up?
I can answer that question because I've already had people after the sidewalk sales say, we view that as a success, and next year I'd like to be on the committee for the sidewalk
Okay,
sales.
all
So
right.
we just demonstrated that's possible
So
by just going out on the limb and just doing it. Wasn't perfect, a lot of room for improvement for next year, but what we got out of it was some of that volunteers.
So I'm gonna put that specifically as interest and participation on the board, because there may be participation on committees.
Yes.
Which is okay.
And then another weakness for the downtown area is there's not like a real big tourist attraction other than the state trail. Like there's not a real big like tourist thing pulling people in. Like we don't have a lake.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, we need
Yeah,
a
we don't have
river
a river.
running through with falls.
Yeah.
Okay,
That would be
so
I love
I'm
those.
gonna try to counterpoint some of this stuff. Do you wanna rely on travelers or tourists, or do you want the community members to support local? And not saying that there's just a choice,
Right.
but tourists visit occasionally. Residents are downtown hopefully more than once a year. Maybe they're downtown every week, maybe they're downtown once a month. But your residents are more likely to support your businesses routinely than a tourist.
Right.
So while there is
I
no
guess I probably
real
shouldn't have said-
attraction.
I guess I shouldn't have said tourist.
Like pump tracks is a great example of what you're
Yeah.
talking about. If we build it, something like that, they will come. And not necessarily tourists, but people from Pinckney and people from Dansville. and
Yeah.
So
yeah.
People
you
that
wanna
can
call
put money into
it
Stockbridge.
more of a regional attraction?
Yeah,
That will
yeah,
attract
yeah,
people from more from.
Yeah, like we
Yeah.
all go
from
to
the
Chelsea to
community.
eat.
Right.
So we wanna take this community and grow the trade area
Right,
a
yep.
little bit.
Yeah, that's more what I meant.
Okay.
Do we have anything to bring them back? Once they come for the Lakelands Trail bike ride and they see our town, what's gonna bring them back except for the trail?
Yeah, because
Exactly.
they could
That's a weakness.
start it in Pinckney where there's a whole bunch of restaurants that they could do after the fact, you know, when they get back, or Stockbridge where there's pizza and a Mexican restaurant. You know, I mean if
And a couple of smaller restaurants that are open, we're not sure when.
Yeah.
You know, that type of thing,
yeah.
or seasonally.
So one of the weaknesses we have, and I don't know if it's already defined in what you already have up there, is I've heard a local young family say verbatim, I live here but I don't shop here. And so we're a sleeper town. Our own village residents are not shopping in Stockbridge.
So we'll call that leakage.
A lot of leakage.
Leakage means you have dollars available to sell, you know, I'm a reader.
Absolutely.
I spend $100 a year on books, because most of the time I'm in the library, but sometimes I buy a book. there's no bookstore in my town, so I have to go somewhere else to buy the book, that's leakage. So I'm gonna call that leakage.
There would be a lot of leakage. And that's just because things don't exist.
Anything else organizationally besides lack of interest? Do you have, the knowledge, skills, and abilities of the board members? Seems like there's good camaraderie among the group, that's good.
No, we are not, I personally am not trained to be a chair of a DDA, so,
Okay.
education,
So
so one of my weaknesses is, I'm crazy passionate about being in the seat, but actually knowing how to do it is, something that
Alright,
will happen down the road.
I'm gonna help you out on this particular, topic.
Okay.
Two things. One, Michigan Municipal League has a wealth of information that is in many cases complimentary or low cost. Also, the Michigan Downtown Association right now is working on producing a webinar series for board members to gain more knowledge on a number of topics. They're probably gonna release it, I know we're still recording, because I'm gonna be in one and we're recording mine in end of September or into early October. So I think they'll be available in October. But it'll cover things like the basics of downtown management, how do you update your TIF plan, meeting management, how to run meetings, and then a couple other topics. So if you want to get educated, there are resources out there now or soon that will give you some of those basics. Michigan Main Street, of course, and keep in mind when you say Michigan Main Street, that's an approach to downtown revitalization. So there's resources available there too. Anything else?
Is that Michigan Downtown Association?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, there's 330 odd DDAs in the state of Michigan. And the MDA is an organization where the DDAs can join. In many cases, it's the executive director, if you have one, that is the most engaged in that organization. But there are other representatives from DDAs who participate. They have workshops. Many of them have been virtual over the last 10 months or so. So this webinar series will be available on demand. Most of the workshops are in person, so it also provides networking opportunities, and they have them all over the state. The big conference this year is in November, and that will be in Detroit. So there's a cost to attend, of course. Everything's not free, but it's a way to. So there's really three things that they do. One is networking, two is education, and three is advocacy. So if there are legislation pending at the state level, for example, they keep us apprised of what's going on, so that way cities, villages, and townships that have DDAs can inform legislators whether or not they're for or in favor or critical of legislation that might be passed.
Can you go back to weaknesses?
Yeah.
So we are a newer board with previous high turnover.
Okay, so previously high turnover. And I'm gonna guess, is there a loss of institutional knowledge with that?
Yes.
True.
Well,
I mean, you would disagree? Okay.
You don't disagree?
I agree with what she's saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
I was just
Do you
thinking,
feel like you're reinventing the wheel every time somebody
No.
comes on board and new takes over, or is
I think
there
we
a
have-
continuity?
I think we have a good continuation of the previous board, but the previous board just wasn't doing as much as we're doing now. So
Yeah.
it's not,
so I'm saying, that's why I'm saying there's not a loss of knowledge,
Because there isn't really nothing to,
we are starting from scratch, we're not building on
Okay.
anything,
so is that your opportunity?
absolutely.
except for John.
Okay.
He
Well,
tried.
John is this guy then?
Yeah, he's our knowledge,
I don't know about that, but
he's our,
Okay, so what we don't want you
You're our
to do is
constant.
start from scratch every time board leadership changes hands or board members change hands. So is there training provided to board members when they,
Not currently, which is my next weakness, which is,
well, we go
Um,
back to education and training in the board.
Okay.
So an opportunity might be an orientation for board members.
Yes. Now Daryl, when he took over the chair, he had built us binders, he had done a lot to facilitate that. So we're very grateful for that. And I have not, as chair, passed that on to Melissa yet, but that's a great goal. The other goal in my mind, which fits in there either weakness or opportunity, is there's no current DDA director. And in my opinion,
That is a weakness and an opportunity.
Yes.
So no staff. But
No.
higher staff. Okay. What about other things with the downtown as a place, not the organization, but the place? What other opportunities are there?
What do you mean? Oh, opportunities
For the downtown as a whole.
okay.
So we talked about, we have an opportunity to upgrade our streetscaping. We have a new
Opportunity
market
for
analysis.
Business growth.
Pardon?
There's an opportunity for business growth.
Business growth.
We do have a vacant storefront, so new businesses can move in. Or
What's the vacancy rate right now, do you know? Like,
It might be in that retail market analysis, but I don't.
we don't have it. My inventory sheet.
Okay.
I didn't. It seems that there were maybe in your district, so this is the challenge with identifying some of this, is you have your district, which is large, and then you have your core of your downtown,
Yeah.
which is a subset of the district, and so some of these vacancies might have been outlying areas where you're really looking for the density, and your downtown, your pending master plan actually talks about that, about trying to concentrate more of these commercial uses in this downtown core.
The CBD, the Central
Yes.
Business District, okay.
Yeah. Anything else for opportunities?
Park improvements, which we're working on now, which is huge. So, that in turn makes us more attractive community to maybe potentially families moving in and all that.
Okay.
Hey, one thing I'm thinking about is, I talked to a business owner about, what's upstairs? Nothing.
Okay, that's a good one. Upstairs use is a huge opportunity. Huge, huge, huge.
especially since I don't know how many posts on Facebook I see every day about people looking for rental space.
Exactly. And unfortunately, I think that the upstairs that is now nothing was made very difficult by the village council years ago. So just cost.
That's
We can
huge.
change that.
Put a big star next to that one.
We can
We can
change
fix
that.
that, now we can, yeah, that's a big one.
What do you mean made difficult? You mean made difficult
Um,
to have rentals?
Let me just say that this business owner brought to the council a request for building apartments, and the water and sewer hookup fees were so exorbitant at the time, he could not do it.
Okay.
Our costs have now dropped, so it's possible we could do this with a little help.
We're gonna move on to threats, just because I'm, like I said,
Define
trying
a
to keep
threat.
time. A threat would be, so a threat would be something, if you attempted to pursue an improvement, or pursue a project, or pursue something like over here, that's going to stop that. So for example, this last year, business success was really threatened by the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I don't wanna put the pandemic up here, because that to me is a situational thing.
Right.
But, you could look at things like,
Population loss?
Chelsea is already our competition. So our
Yes.
businesses more likely to go to Chelsea because they're already ahead of where you are. So not
That's the
that,
first thing that came to my mind when you said what threats. I just thought Chelsea.
well, let's put it down.
Yeah,
because,
no, it's true.
They've been at it a really long time, and they've been very successful.
Plus,
And
they've built it to where they need us to go there. There's so many restaurants in Chelsea, those restaurants in Chelsea can't
they
survive
can't
without
survive without having more
Manchester
regional-
and Stockbridge, and they can't. They did it well.
Yeah, so we'll go back to my question about resources. not having resources could be a threat to your success, right?
Yeah.
So, how do we, well, your resources will grow as you attract more investment and more development and more businesses and all those kind of things, so it's kind of this whole circular thing.
I think the cost, like in some of the buildings we're talking about, the sheer cost of doing, like, making rentals and things.
Yes, costs are
Because
high.
of the age of the buildings and the cost to renovate them is prohibitive a lot of times.
Yeah,
Population loss too, because if we don't have the population to support the businesses, they leave.
Are people leaving? What was you gotten the latest census figures for, they came out 2020, just recently. So I noticed in your master plan, you had the census figures for 2010.
are you talking about our resident population or?
Yes, is that stable?
Very consistent,
Okay,
very, very stable.
okay. So why do we think there's population loss? I'm asking.
Did you mean businesses?
No, I mean like people,
Are you thinking out migration without in migration, or?
a little bit of both. If we don't have the population to support a growing downtown business, then it can't grow. Because we won't have the population to spend the money there. So if we get aging population who's on a fixed income, we don't have an influx of working families who can spend the money. So I guess population loss is the loss of working class or working, my brain isn't functioning right now.
Okay, I think I got it. So,
Yeah.
out migration. Right, so what I'm gonna phrase it is the community attractive to new families to replace the out migration? And out migration, it could be people moving out, or it could be people moving on to a higher plane.
There you go.
Yes, okay.
Or out of the job market, you
Or
know,
out of the job
because
market.
they're not bringing in
People
an income.
need money to spend money.
Right.
So if we don't have money coming in, we don't have money going.
We, one of the threats I see is our crumbling infrastructure and the fact that we have to pass on these costs to these incoming people / families. And how they view that, and that may be a threat of every community, but it's
You know
real.
what, I can spell it right. There is not, and let's use Rose as an example, there is not enough funding generated from the existing road funding mechanisms to pay for the roads that exist now. So it's the same thing with every other public service, whether it's water lines, sewer lines, roads, etc. The money coming in does not cover the legacy costs that were created. It's a huge dilemma right now, because nobody wants to pay more taxes, right?
Right.
But these costs are not going away. Some communities actually, if they're more rural, are actually removing surface roads and putting them back to being gravel, because it's a lot less to maintain. It's probably not your issue here, but I'm just using that as an example to say that those kind of things exist. And it's a huge problem because they're legacy costs for the next the next generation and the next generation. We built it, like our, boomer generation built things, but we have not made accommodations for the long-term influence and maintenance of these things. So yeah, it's a huge problem nationally, it's not just here.
As a counter to my threat point though, under opportunity is what you already said about location. Because of where we're located, we should be trying to use that as an appeal to draw in new residents. Because of, we're halfway between Lansing and Ann Arbor, which is what brought me here, and Jackson and Howell, and it's like the perfect location between all of these big city centers.
Okay.
And lower cost of living.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna put
Yeah,
that under.
so we get a lot of bang for your buck in
Or did
Stockbridge.
you say my house was so cheap?
That's actually a strength.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. All right, I'm gonna keep going. If there's something that you think of tomorrow, just send it to Jerry and she can send it on to me.
Okay.
So the reason I wanted to go through this exercise, this is a lot of information, but now we need to think about what you guys can do about some of this, right? Because there's a lot of influences on here that you can, make some gains on or correct or improve, but there's a lot of things on here that you can't. So one of the things I wanted to talk about today is what you feel your role is as an organization now. So we talked about what organizationally, how you think you're doing. So what really is your purpose now? So that's really what we want to come to next is, as much as I looked for it, I could not find a vision statement or a mission statement for the organization. So we don't have to worry about writing them today, but what I am looking for are key words so that we can draft a mission statement and a vision statement. And then you can when I supply you with that, we'll give you it in a draft form and you can edit it as you want. So I'm gonna do some of the harder penmanship kind of language for you. But what I'm looking for you is, if you think about what do we do? What is our job? What are some things that you think are your job?
Support
And support for who?
the businesses in the community.
In or and?
And
What else?
Business recruitment is a facet of what we do.
so growth.
Where was that at?
So when you say growth, it's growth in attraction, growth in, so there's number and there's quantity and quality, right? So quantity would be, we have 10 vacancies in town and we're gonna fill them. But then there's also the quality aspect, which is, we do have businesses in town and we wanna help strengthen and make them more viable. So is it one or other or both?
Both.
So it's not just, so we're gonna put in quality and quantity. What else?
Things to make the community more attractive for people to want to live here.
Community amenities.
Community.
Did you say amenities?
Yeah.
And how do you see yourselves as accomplishing this? What are you able to offer that will meet these goals?
Yeah, for funding. Coordination, so I'm very funded.
I just see where this all ties into Michigan Main Street. I think having that in place helps define all of this.
Good. So who else is involved in this? What other stakeholders? Who are the stakeholders?
Stockbridge stakeholders are the business owners, the organizational leaders, the residents, the schools, and then it gets more defined, like outreach, township, et cetera.
what about so traditionally, DDAs were started to handle, and it's evolved over time, but they were primarily created to be the organization that facilitates implementation of that master plan for downtown. And that's really what the direction that I'd like to see move toward. Is that something that has been suggested to you in the past, or has that been something that you've conceived of? Have you used your community's master plan as a resource document for developing your work plans or the projects that you've accomplished so far?
That's an opportunity, that's a huge opportunity. So the master plan, as I understand it, is way overdue in terms of,
Being updated.
correct.
Mm-hmm.
So as a DDA chair, I have not focused on that whatsoever. However, Daryl was chair of both, so he may have been, in his mind, working off the master plan on to how he was. So I don't know.
Probably not,
Okay,
in a short.
okay, so it's still, that's an opportunity.
But, and what I'm thinking of is being part of 5 Healthy Towns for so many years, I have had to annually do surveys and reports for them about our community. And they're, of course, stressing recreation and stuff like that. So I'm thinking, maybe I should be bringing that to the planning commission for the master plan, to the DDA for ideas for moving ahead. Because they make a lot of powerful suggestions in there for, do you have this, do you provide this? And I'm thinking, maybe that would help us.
Yeah, because I also,
I'm jumping ahead, but
When-
I just want to make sure that that's included.
yeah, and I was thinking of trails as part of our mission
Yeah.
statement keywords, because that's, or I'm just understanding what the keywords are.
So the mission statement is gonna be more about what you do. The vision statement is gonna be more about what you see happen. So this is gonna be, the DDA does this job. The DDA does placemaking, the DDA does infrastructure, public infrastructure, whether it's parks, parking. I would say parks is really a function of the DDA per se, as much as it is a corollary. Usually places have a parks and recreation plan itself that's separate from the DDA. So this is what you do, and this is like, in 20 years, this is what we see happening. So that's really what we can concentrate on now, and I had 2 sheets for that, so.
Okay. And this is a lot, I don't think we even need more for that.
Right, yeah,
Correct.
this'll be, what I'm trying to do here and what I'll come up with is like a 2-sentence descriptor of what the DDA decide, it's going, this is what we're gonna be when we grow up. This is the actions, this is what we see as what we should be doing. So this is pretty comprehensive at this point, so. So the vision statement, and again, I don't think I can capture it all here, but, this is the thing that you say in 20 years. So pretend like you're starting now, we say we're pretty much starting from scratch, you've already mentioned that comment. So this is 2021, so imagine yourself in downtown in 2040. What do you see? You say we want to be more of a trail town. So the trails are viable, they're all connected, so there's connectedness between the trails and the downtown.
And,
We want to be a destination regarding the trail.
yeah, and our businesses need to kind of focus on that. We have to attract businesses that are gonna play to that. Is that,
Okay. So are you branding yourself as a trail town?
I am a destination
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
for a lot of,
Regional, probably outside
the
of,
trails.
yeah,
Yeah.
for the trails too.
yeah.
And motorcyclists.
And motorcycles, I'm a destination.
and oddly enough, if you look at our businesses, we do have those. And are we paying attention to, we've got a motorcycle shop down here. We've got cool cars down here. You know, I'm thinking, are we paying attention to that?
Does it,
Or do we just see what we wanna see?
does it make sense to you? I can't answer this question, you have to answer this question. Does it make sense for you to try to develop yourselves as a niche for those types of businesses? That's something that Michigan Main Street will talk to you about when you get to that place. They've recently redone the Main Street approach a little bit, and now they're focusing on what they call transformation strategies. And the transformations, they're asking communities to focus on, you can't be everything to everybody. So if we focus on these transformation strategies and pick a market niche or an age group, so there's like college town, trail town, Yuppieville, family oriented. So they're asking communities now to kind of pick a tract and focus all their efforts into that tract. So do you see yourselves 20 years down the road as a destination for trail riders, for motorcycle
For recreation.
outings?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's why we love the idea of pump track so much.
Okay.
Could I speak for all of us?
Recreation,
Yes. I see a bustling, vibrant downtown in the 20 years. That's what I see.
Okay. And bustling and vibrant means business and buildings are full.
Five cool restaurants.
And it's all cohesive.
Wish we would.
Okay, cohesive. Buildings are full. Upper floors are full.
Yes. Let's get that done.
What about the historic resources that you have? Do you see buildings renovated, or do you see infill opportunities for, some communities don't have a really strong historic preservation ethic, and so they'd rather level and rebuild with these multiple higher density, right? So your buildings are mainly 2 and some are 3 stories. Some communities, Royal Oak, you're not a Royal Oak, you won't be a Royal Oak, I just like to use that as an example. They've gone after this density. Do you want to be that dense, or do you want to stick with what you got?
We don't think we're ever gonna be.
I can't even envision.
So
that
we want
dense.
to be compatible with our historic resources. Do you have a historic district right now?
We do not,
Do you
to my
want one?
knowledge.
Do you want one even if it's just honorary?
Here's my thoughts about that, and that's why you're here, because I don't even have an answer. This is the part I can't answer. In other words, this is the part that we just want it vibrant and bustling. How we get there, I'm not sure. So whether that's, I don't know how to go about that piece.
My concern with labeling things with like historic district, historic preservation, is that starts to get real expensive, and that it can become really limiting for
Limiting.
companies that come in. So while personal opinion, while I'd love to see the charm of the historic buildings stay in place, I don't think that, personally, don't think that we should be one of the communities.
You tried, and you found that
Right.
it's not possible.
No.
Right, I'm not sure what you're talking about.
So if you label a building as like a historic landmark, or as like a historic building with certain recognitions, you can only paint the inside of it a certain color. You can only use certain finishes, you
Right,
can
right.
only,
Yep.
you have
can't
to restore a
change.
certain
That's
way.
it.
Windows.
That's if you set up your,
Yeah.
so there's, historic preservation is another 3-hour long lecture.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it to you in a nutshell.
Okay.
So there's an honorary National Register nomination that provides nothing but you're an honorary historic district. And then you get into the local historic district, which has teeth. So when you identify it as a local historic district, you have to set up a historic district commission, and they make decisions upon those very types of things, like what color scheme you have, how you can renovate buildings or not. So those are the two. The thing about having historic districts is that it brings available incentives to developers to redo the buildings. Without some sort of designation, you can't get certain incentives, whether it's the tax credits that are available now from the state or the federal government, or sometimes grants that you can apply for. You have to have a historic designation or be eligible for that historic designation.
And for the honorary one, you know, if someone wanted to reface the front of the building with non-historical looking brick, it's not gonna be like a huge legal battle, like that.
So the the National Register district has no teeth, it's
Okay.
honorary.
Okay.
So you have contributing and non-contributing structures in a National Register historic district. And it brings it down to the local level. I will say that anecdotally, if you have a historic designation and your building is in a historic district, they're held to a higher standard, and the real estate normally is more valuable because there's an expectation that the buildings will be maintained. I think the term historic sometimes gets people, and even the national, like the national programs are trying to get away from calling it historic preservation. They can call it building conservation, right? Because if we tear down buildings, all that stuff is going to a landfill and all those resources are wasted. You know, it's the wood, it's the framing, it's the bricks, so all of that. So it's something to consider. You don't have to put it in, but if you want to maintain your charm and maintain your building stock, you've already talked about that, then you have to, I don't say, you don't have to have a designation. I'm just pointing it out as an opportunity. But I think you still want to, if you want to maintain this charm, especially of this town square area, then you need to start thinking about building conservation, meaning instead of tearing down buildings and putting in new, or fixing up the old ones, because they have character that you'll never find anywhere else. But you probably also want to start thinking about appropriate infill. And appropriate infill will be if you have those missing teeth or gaps in the buildings, or you have new buildings going up, do you want them to be compatible so that you have the charm, or do you want that nouveau looking building with this backdrop of all these historic buildings? And I'm not suggesting theming is not the right idea. So unless you're Frankenmuth, which works well for Frankenmuth, but you know, it's just, you can develop, and it's mentioned in the master plan about developing some sorts of standards for new construction so that it's sympathetic with the old, if that makes
Got it,
sense.
yeah, we were talking.
Yep.
So, this is kind of sidetracking a little bit, but it's tied into historic history. And I've had this vision that, this is just a thought idea, but of tying into the destination thing. So, you know, we have like Waterloo Farm Museum out here, right? And they bus kids in, and they have Pioneer Days and all this stuff. So I have this vision of Stockbridge having various businesses, you know, those like big green signs on historic, they have for historic buildings. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an official historic building, but you have these green signs with some little history thing at various businesses and buildings throughout the town, throughout the village. And people come from the trail or from wherever eventually with buses and things, but they come into town and then they walk around town, and they go, and they're numbered, and they go from this building and they go into the business, and there's like a little something to give them a history lesson on each thing. So for example, Manna restaurant could have a little history lesson on the railroads and the trains that used to come through Stockbridge and go to Jackson and Chicago, and a little history lesson. And then they go from there to the Double Deuce Saloon, and he has a little history lesson about whatever, you know, the stage stop, or, you know, anything that related. And they go to the bank, they come to my building, and they have a history lesson about the original bank in Stockbridge, and
Every building has a story.
everybody kind of has a little story, a little mini history lesson, and and people ride their bikes into town, and then they say, hey, let's go do this little history tour. You know, there's 10 do, and they go around and they stop into the businesses, which draws them into the business to buy things, perhaps, you know, the restaurants and other businesses. And so it kind of makes it a destination spot. It's a miniature one, but it could grow into something bigger. They could put a train next to they could bring in a locomotive or something, you know, and have people come in. That could be one of the things.
Why
It's just,
not?
you know, it's a vision.
Totally, I
But,
can totally see that.
So anyway, so that's you know, something that has been on my mind for a while.
Is that what you meant by
Something.
theme? Cause that sounds like a theme.
Yeah, it could be.
I mean, it's not really a building theme, but like, I see what you're saying, where you could have like a little plaque in every building about the building history with a little, you know, yeah.
And, I mean, the plaque wouldn't be enough to cover enough, so you
Right,
just have to have
right.
supplemental
Yeah.
stuff that they go in and, you know, they go in and say, hey, I'm here to get the history thing or whatever, the little
Yeah.
thing, and it's a little printout
So
or,
they could
you
do a
know,
little narrative about
yeah, a
how
little
the
narrative
building
about certain
It was
things,
built
and
in eighteen
each one,
ninety-two,
yeah.
it started out as the mercantile, you know,
yeah,
somebody's mercantile, and they were from Norway or wherever they came
Yeah, I
from
mean-
and settled the area, and they first owned the house on Jones Avenue, you know,
right, yeah.
whatever, yeah.
You got, you know, people, when it was settled and the trains and, you know, the train went through town, that's another, kind of cool thing about the village is.
So your trail system, is it mainly rails to trails?
Yes.
But the border
that's
to
kind of a
border
whole sidetrack
trail is
thing,
supposed to be
Yeah,
connecting.
Something.
was Stockbridge so, up where I have my cottage, there's a neighboring town called Thompsonville, you probably go to Crystal Mountain, that's where Thompsonville is. Thompsonville, at one point, they just, did a dedication, they had the two railroads that crossed, and the switching thing was left, even though the railroads have been abandoned and converted to trails, but they are celebrating this. Used to be, the town grew because it was a hub for these two, it was the only town that had the two crossing train routes, and so that's what they're celebrating, and using that as an attraction for getting the people to come. Was this a major, historically, was this a
I don't know as I call it major, it wasn't like a major hub.
did you have a
it's
train station
we had a
here
train
that
station,
isn't-
yeah,
There was a station
yeah.
that was now
So it was-
gone, it hasn't been preserved.
No.
Darn it. There's a lot of money for train stations right now. So, okay, well, at least we know that it's a rails to trails kind of thing, and that could
Yes.
be something that the heritage, so, you know, we wanna talk history, but it's also heritage. So we can, you know, people tend to think that history is a negative word, so you can use, it's all in the, how you phrase it, right? So,
And we do have a really cool local cemetery.
is that in the downtown?
It's in the village, yeah. And
It's just off the downtown.
It's not, well, it's not with the stores, but it's a couple blocks away.
Oh, that's right.
So, it's really old. That's what makes it really cool.
It's
Yeah, like I like to just walk through there and read
It's
the
just
whole
so
things on
pretty.
it.
Is
Yeah.
it a, family cemetery that grew, or is it like
No, it's always been the
It's just a-
village,
a village cemetery?
Yeah.
And who owns it?
the village.
The village owns it in Huntington, okay. So this is, nearby, and what would be, how does that,
And it's right off the trail, come to think of it.
Yeah.
How
Yeah,
does
and
that
it's-
influence your vision though? How does this influence or?
It kind of ties into the whole history,
I think she was-
heritage.
I think she was going with down the trails, you know, we were talking about
Yeah.
trails and history
Okay, so we're
and,
gonna point these back to down there, so
Yeah.
I'll know what that means.
yeah.
Anything else that you see happening? So you've got this bustling downtown, you've got, the buildings are full with viable businesses, you've got your upper floors occupied, your streetscape looks phenomenal. Actually, 20 years from now, you'll probably be talking about upgrading your streetscape again.
Did we write that down? Streetscape looks phenomenal?
No, we did not. So you have, let's talk about, a community appeal, community aesthetics.
Yeah, that's part of the vision.
Alright, so I'm gonna also ask a question, cause I just don't know how this is gonna influence you, but obviously transportation is changing tremendously. How does that influence your vision? Are you going to be adaptable to new ways? So for example, some communities have built into their plans that they want to be more technologically advanced and supply like the Wi-Fi and the charging stations and all of those things that are trending now but will be normalized in 20 years. So how do you see that, or do you not see that being an issue?
It would be nice to have, like centralized Wi-Fi available for free downtown. I mean, I'm assuming that electric vehicle charging stations are gonna need to be a thing. Especially since this is a thoroughfare between two major freeways.
In my mind, there's so much work to be done just on a, entry level, from that you've now moved into something that I would maybe see in phase.
But no.
Okay,
This
yeah.
is- Keep in mind, this is 20 years from now.
Okay,
This is where you're going. So we'll finish that up.
And I'm on the exact opposite page because I'm envisioning bike paths and,
Yeah.
stuff
Well,
like that.
if we all watched the Jetsons, we'd all be riding little airplanes right now, right? So, all right, I'm gonna take these down and add a couple more pages, because I think we're quickly running out of time. Uh-oh. Adam says, yes, I do recognize you, Anthony. So, that's fine. All right, so our next task is identifying your focus areas. And then we will start talking about projects in the master plan. So the reason I wanted to talk to you about focus areas is because, like I mentioned earlier, too many times DDAs get bogged down in trying to do everything and then get nothing done because you're too spread out, you're too thin, and your resources don't accommodate everything you want to accomplish. And so what I have found is, the other thing that happens is, and Molly, I'll use you as an example.
Okay.
I'm a resident. I have a great idea for downtown, and I think you guys should do it, and here's what you should do. And what happens? And you're like, okay, well, we gotta listen to the whole thing, and you have no response to that person to say, that's a great idea, but here's our plan, and here's what we're focusing on right now. So that's why I want you to start thinking about, instead of trying to be that organization that, and yes, it's always wise to listen to ideas, we would be remiss if we don't, but we have to be able to respond to those who have the ideas, and you just don't have the capacity at this time to be able to accomplish them. So based on your mission and what you want to see happen in the downtown in the future, where do you see yourselves working on in the near term? What are those things that you want to work on? Not projects, but just overall bigger categories. So it could be marketing, right? So I'm going to use marketing as an example. Marketing is a big thing. You can market to new businesses, you can market to residents, you can market to tourists, you can market to on the investment level and trying to promote the community as a place to invest. So there's a lot of different layers. So where do you want to concentrate your time and effort right now? And these can change. So every year, what I would suggest you do, whether it's me or someone else, is to have, when you start your work planning exercises, so we're gonna try to get 2 years worth of work done here in the next half hour. Every year you should probably not necessarily go through that part of the exercise, but this part of the exercise. Are the areas that we're working on still relevant to us? And what projects do we wanna do to fulfill those areas? So what is it that you want to work on? And I'll tell you where I'm going with this. like, we just had a nice walkthrough earlier today about public infrastructure. And again, as I mentioned before, that's primarily, I always say DDAs create the place and promote the place. So dealing with the infrastructure needs is probably gonna be something that you're gonna wanna tackle. And the terminology that we use for that now is called placemaking. So placemaking is dealing with your streetscaping, your buildings. So if your buildings need assistance and you have a facade program or you need a facade program.
We have.
You have. Okay, so those are the kind of things that you can then all fall under that particular category. If I'm reading this correctly, you're talking about trying to support your businesses and help them grow. So I call that economic development.
Absolutely.
And
Those are
economic development
key
is, it's not about attracting, it is about attracting people to the downtown. You can't be like own the business. John has a business, he runs his business, he makes his marketing decisions, he makes his budgeting decisions. You can't influence that. But what you can do is try to help people understand the marketplace more with the market analysis that you did. And use that document to help attract new businesses to come in, and help draw that investment that's gonna deal with these upper floors and with these buildings that are vacant. So that is what I call economic development. That's the distinction. Some people will call it, small business support or whatever. Economic development is about attracting dollars into the community to support businesses through sales or to support people who want to invest, whether that's incentives or knowledge, right?
And there's so much work that needs to be done in those two top bullet points. In my mind, that's phase one, and that itself is gonna take us some
Okay.
time.
All right, and so when it comes to the third prong, which is usually the marketing, I'm going to be honest, other than trying to attract people to come in, I think it's hard to market the community because as you talked about,
Yes.
you don't have a great business mix. You don't have attractions to bring people in. So maybe we need to work on that before we start promoting the downtown. Does that make sense?
It not only makes sense, when I first started the DDA, I wanted to do business recruitment, but then with your involvement and then understanding of our weaknesses, we're not there.
Right.
I can't market something that I can't sell.
So back to this economic development prong, I
That
think.
you don't have.
Well,
And I don't
one of the
have.
things that you can start thinking about though is, you do have some businesses that are here, so let's start understanding their story more for retention purposes. You have some good businesses here, let's help retain them first and maybe help them grow, knowing that they're here, they're planted, right? We wanna see them grow and grow tomatoes, right?
In the marketing piece we're doing, like with the sidewalk sales,
So marketing, what do you see really yourself now as more event support, is that correct?
we have events in place that are year after year. We tried the sidewalk sales for that purpose, what you just said. Like, I care about how many people are walking through Judy's door.
Right.
We care how many people are walking through Judy's door. So by caring, we create event, which creates traffic and
Okay,
business.
but you're not putting on most of the events, you're relying on other people to put on events.
We support it financially, so they rely on us.
So, support with funding
Correct.
for
Sponsorship.
events that do what?
Bring
I guess I'm
people downtown.
No,
Yes.
what I'm getting at here is, do you have criteria on the events that you sponsor? So, and here's what I'm getting at. We already talked about, over here, some of this is what we call branding or niche, right? So, if we're gonna promote ourselves as a trail town or position ourselves as a trail town, a community that has historic charm and character, blah, 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 blah. Do you have criteria for the events that you sponsor because they're bringing in or bringing in the type of consumers that you want to see more of in your downtown?
We don't, as a matter of fact, we made a motion 6 months ago, if I remember correctly, that not only do we not, that we're not going to, which I think may have been a mistake.
I wanted to bring up on the sidewalk sale.
Yeah.
More than half the people did not know what was going on.
So we need more marketing for that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's-
But how do
there's
you do
event
it? I
marketing
mean,
and then
I know
there's-
you had it on Facebook and that's what I said, well, she had it on Facebook.
Facebook is a good resource, but every event, usually you put a marketing plan together.
Yeah.
To promote the event to a number of different resources, you can write, I don't wanna get into
Yeah.
this too much in the weeds, but you can write press releases, you can put posters up
Yeah.
in windows, you can,
Yeah.
if you have a cable TV station that has a community channel, you put a slide in it.
Here's what we did, we put it at the marquee downtown, we put it at the marquee at the trailhead, we put it on social media, we put it in the paper. We
You
sent
didn't
it,
have posters.
we did posters.
Oh, did you?
Yep, Jen McClure
So,
made them.
yeah.
So the
Chances
big
are the
thing was,
mechanisms that you used
Yeah.
are not the mechanisms that people who came to you had access to.
yeah,
Right.
and this was something totally new. So the
Yeah.
exciting part was that we did it, now let's do it better next year.
Right.
So what, I just, so to be clear, the marketing that you're doing now is really about events and bringing people in through events. You're not really doing any marketing toward promoting downtown Stockbridge, not your organization, but downtown Stockbridge to the greater community, greater regional community.
Yes, let's get, because John, you had said something about this piece that I loved last year at some point about the events and about how we are expecting the people that are doing these events and the expectations of the sponsorship. And you're touching on it, unless I'm misunderstanding what your suggestion. And then as a board, I thought we had voted that we weren't gonna do that, which I think might have been a mistake, because we want to have an understanding from who we give this money that we are meeting that. Am I starting to tie this all together
Yeah,
correctly?
so normally with the sponsor, and I'll use this in reverse as well. So
Okay.
I'm a company, right? I'm Company X, I sell widgets, and I'm sponsoring a community event. And in
Okay.
exchange for that sponsoring that community event, I have expectations of how you're gonna promote my business. So I'm gonna be on your poster, I'm gonna be in your press release, I'm gonna be given an opportunity on the main stage to welcome the headline concert performer. I'm going to have signs, I'm gonna bring my car down and have it on display, whatever it is, those are sponsor benefits, and that's an expectation of a sponsor that in exchange for $1,000, I'm gonna get back $1,000, and usually it's more than that, worth of marketing from during that event. So you should expect the same thing in reverse. If you are sponsoring events for other organizations, that organization should be either promoting, I would suggest promoting the downtown as opposed to the DDA, because you're trying to raise awareness about the downtown. The organization itself, I mean, you could do it that way and say, this is a DDA sponsored event. Your logo only describes you as a DDA, you don't have a downtown logo without the DDA designator on it, so that could be something you could work toward down the road.
Okay.
But,
That's a good point.
yeah, but in exchange for these funding with support, you need to have a return on that investment. You're investing in that event,
Yes.
you need a return on the investment. You also wanna see events happen in the downtown,
Okay.
because that's what's bringing in people to bring exposure to your businesses, that's what
And
you're
here-
using as a marketing tool
Here's
right
what
now.
some of the reality of that. And let's be very honest here, Debbie Noble is the chair of the Harvest Moon.
Right.
She takes this on, which is awesome for the community.
Right.
She's kind of a one-man band, so she gets the sponsors, and my business is actually one of those sponsors, but I don't have a big expectation of what she's gonna do with that sponsorship money. I'd like to, and then and I'm not picking on Debbie, so let's move to a day in the village and
Wait, can I
the
ask you a
chamber.
question? What organization is the creator of the Harvest Moon Festival?
It's hosted by the Village of Stockbridge, and it's sponsored mainly by, as I understand it, the DDA in Enbridge. So we know Debbie's very limited what she can do, cause she's running the office and she's running this event. So my expectation is not that great, because we're so low on manpower. Are you guys following me?
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I get my logo on there, I'm happy, but there's no other, but I'm with you on, in terms of like a day in the village and the DDA's participation. I'd like to know what they can do, and I like the idea of it not focusing on the DDA logo, right, but focusing on all the businesses, I'm not sure how to achieve that.
Well, a lot of downtowns, I don't have one to show you, but, so the logo would be similar to what you have for the village, for the DDA logo. It might have some of the iconic, graphically, so you have some buildings and then it says Stockbridge DDA.
So
So
opportunity
instead
would
of
be,
Stockbridge DDA, it would say downtown Stockbridge.
then we should revise, the opportunity would be to revise our logo.
I would not say revise your logo, I would say create a complementary downtown specific logo that is not about the organization, but it's about the whole place.
I'm sold.
Okay.
Can we write
Yeah.
that down?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause right now it's just orange and
It's kind of like the
no one really knows what it means.
it's kind of like the downtown Lansing logo or the Lansing logo. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't, but I have Chelsea in my head. The picture of the tower means something to me. The cloud.
The Lansing one is like 3 bars and it's supposed to be the power plant.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's terrible, but that's besides the point. Everyone in the area knows what it is.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's very typical to use unique buildings that are specific to your downtown versus other downtowns.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, I mean, downtowns, if there's no buildings, that's really the identifying feature of most of them. You either have a downtown, a building, or a statue, or you have a
Our town
water
square.
tower, or you have, you have something that says, this is our community, and it's different than every other community out there, so.
I have to ask John something real quick. John, was I following you correctly last year when you had mentioned this? You kind of wanted to know what we were getting for our money, so to speak, and then there was some, or am I totally
I'm honestly
misunderstood?
trying to remember what what I was thinking or what I said, but well, I think it's maybe coming back to me, and I think it's just a matter of allocation of resources and
Yeah.
how much do we want to spend on this versus that? I mean, which is always a problem, but
Yeah.
I think it was. Yeah, I mean, how much do we want to allocate toward a pump track versus a day in the village and events and everything, I mean, how much of what percentage of our money do we want to allocate toward these things?
Okay.
Yeah, that's a key
We're not talking
thing.
budget today, so
Right,
we can
okay.
put that out of the equation.
Okay.
I think I have a better understanding of how you market and how you would want to market, at least it's primarily now through events, except I think when it comes time to do this economic development piece and try to attract these new businesses and new investors to come in, you're gonna have to market the community to them using the strengths and the opportunities as your ways to be that, those are the attractors, right? Those are the things that are gonna,
One,
be appealing to. So these, what we wanna do eventually is to develop objection handlers, right? Well, I'm not coming to your downtown because there's no regional tourist attraction. But we have all these other great amenities, right? So we're getting way ahead of the game, so.
I want to make a quick comment on the marketing before you go off of that, and that is, before we kind of write off marketing, because we said we have too many weaknesses to market toward businesses and things, but I kind of feel like we have enough strengths and not many weaknesses where if one of the marketing areas could be to potential residents because of the strengths of our schools, our park, our location, people. I know of another family where one works for U of M and one works for Michigan State, and so our location and just the family friendly village. So I don't know as I would write off marketing to
Okay.
potential residents. Businesses I think would be tough to market to right now, but
I'm gonna ask this question just cause I don't know. Is there any other organization marketing the village, not the downtown, but the village for those purposes? And is it the DDA's job to promote the village as a residential attraction?
Yeah,
I'm just trying to.
maybe not,
I'm
right.
just trying to, if it's not you,
Right,
then
right.
who?
Yeah,
And
The
can we use that as a potential partnership?
maybe, yeah,
I
the
brought-
school would be the
The
logical
school
choice.
did have a really good marketing scheme going on, but of course, past couple years have killed it, but.
I brought this up to Jerry at one point, that, we're kinda stuck in this cycle where it's hard to bring in a lot of new people because we don't have the excess housing and we don't have the amenities like grocery stores, doctor's offices, things like that. But we can't get the developers for the grocery stores and the doctor's offices and things like that because we don't have the population to support it. So we can't get one without the other, but we can't get one without the other. And
Conundrum.
yeah, so, I had a thought, and I am not a economic planner or anything by any means, but if you can try to get housing developers or people to come to Stockbridge based on location, based on the good schools, based on all the good points that John had just brought up, and start to try to pick up the population a bit, and you can show developers that the population's starting to come up because of all the benefits, and that our marketing scheme to get the population to come up because of all the benefits is working, we may be able to pull in the developer for the grocery store and the developer for the doctor's office and the developer for whatever else. And those businesses can then help to drive slightly more or aggressive, if we want to go there, population expansion to support our downtown. So, to sum it all up, if we as a DDA try to attract new residents, it only benefits the downtown area because the residents will then be able to spend money there.
In knowing, being involved in the village through just showing up, I know that there has been some talk of housing developers, but we lack the infrastructure and the correct things in place now. Correct me if I'm wrong, Molly. That's a challenge.
Right,
And so
'cause
that's
they
why
have
these
to-
two top things are so important.
Yes,
You
there
can't,
Yeah,
capacity available for water and sewer,
we're
Yeah.
landlocked,
and you're landlocked.
yeah.
we're landlocked,
Yeah, so any expansion is going on in the township, really.
right,
Which
So we
you
need to
can't
get-
really capture, are they a charter township now?
no,
They're not,
No.
never.
so you could.
You have to have a certain population and income level to be a
you could
charter
annex.
township.
You could annex. if
We
there was
could, but
it's an awful hard process.
it'll be a
to do.
battle,
Yeah,
I can't take that on.
okay. Alright,
Sorry,
But we
well, let's
could
think
team
about
up
that, we
with-
could put it on the burner.
you do it,
Yeah.
okay?
You could put it on the burner.
We're not paying for that, never mind.
Alright, okay, so,
No.
but these three categories seem reasonable based
Yeah.
on what your mission statement is. You want to work on the community attractiveness and amenities, you wanna work on business growth,
Yes.
and you wanna work on, promotion a little bit.
Yeah,
And
those
that
are
can
those are
grow.
huge
That
tasks.
can grow, your definition of marketing, your definition of promotion can grow
Uh-huh.
as you're meeting some of these other goals and you're drawing more businesses in and your vacancy rate is going down and you got more people living, even if it's one apartment conversion every year, right? It's
Yeah.
more people coming in.
Right.
It
The
expands.
placemaking again entails, what all does that
See,
encompass?
I forgot what it was too.
So placemaking is about the physical space of the downtown. So it's how the look and feel of your downtown, walkability, the streetscaping. It's about the public spaces in your downtown, so whether they're, you know, little pocket parks or larger parks, it's about putting, places where people want to go. And then also, placemaking is also about, to some respect, the buildings and the building, like what the buildings look like and how they interact with the streetscaping. So placemaking really is about making your community attractive for people to come and experience it outdoors, right? So it's the public realm,
So that would include the park.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, if that's in your downtown, yeah. The challenge with doing the parks is, you know, primarily the DDAs are economic development drivers. But we have to be respectful of understanding the community conditions, and not every community has resources to be able to enhance parks, and so sometimes the DDAs will do that, right? So, you know, we created a park, we put a pavilion in it, we put in the restrooms, we put in a kiosk for public information, whatever you wanna call it, a DDA can do that.
We just did that a year or so ago, we
Yeah.
put in $250,000.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's already been,
that's how our DDA started. That was the first thing they
Yeah.
did, was create Veterans Park. And it's been a major focus, I mean, ever
Yeah.
since then. I mean, we've always done something kind of over there.
right, but exciting.
It's like, it's interesting, because I'm not, it's like to me, the three things that we've been focusing on historically are the park, number one, as well as public infrastructure, sidewalks, and we've got the facade program and events. Those would be what I would say are the three things we have focused on, which are different, I mean, a little bit different than what we're,
And you know what, that's okay,
about there.
because you start out doing one thing, and once you've accomplished that and crossed it and put it on your to-done list, now what's next, right? So the
Right,
next
right.
iteration is, maybe we need to start working on these things, because that's done or nearly done, right?
The way I see placemaking is, it is key and so important, because once you get some of those things in place, people get it more excited about possibilities of bringing business here. That's just, it's gonna work on itself in terms of once we get a few of those things accomplished.
Alright, we have about 15 more minutes.
Okay,
I mean, I'm happy to continue this at another date if we don't finish.
okay.
I'd like to try to move on. I
How
don't know
much-
if anyone had time to go through the master plan. I did last night with my pink highlighter. And I highlighted a lot of recommendations and suggestions that are in this master plan pertain to downtown or pertain to the DDA, and that's why I wanted to make sure we include this statement. Implement village master plan.
Yes.
Because if you don't do it, who will? So some of the goals they identified is promoting, encouraging a thriving CBD. And maintaining the historic character, interestingly, by preserving and restoring historically significant properties, as well as promoting new development compatible with existing character. So we represented that in our vision statement. Provide a transportation system that facilitates smooth and efficient flow of automobiles, trucks, buses, emergency vehicles, bicycles, and pedestrians. That's really what they call complete streets. So you're providing multiple modes of transportation and making sure that the interactions of the pedestrians, I would allege that the pedestrians in the downtown should be the highest design element, meaning you design for the pedestrian first. If you want to encourage walkability, you need to make sure that the pedestrians have the highest design focus. Encourage commercial development. Those are some of the planning issues that they identified in this plan. Moving on, it looks like maybe you guys submitted some of this information and got incorporated into the plan. So priority needs for the village, sidewalks on the south end. Some of this might have been accomplished, so if it has been and I just don't know about it, let me know. Revolving loan program, I don't know what that's for. You are allowed to do revolving loans for build outs, under certain circumstances. Facade improvement, business attraction package, you're working on a banner and bracket program. Small Business Saturday, which is a national shopping day, the Saturday after Thanksgiving, we should all know about that. Festive decorations in the downtown trees maintained. Understanding the demographics for attracting new businesses, we have a market study to do that. Develop industrial district. That's in the DDA, and there's some vacant buildings there, but to my knowledge, none of them are owned by the city any longer, or the village.
They never were they?
Okay.
Yeah, it's a whole separate thing.
And supporting community events, and then, which includes, All Clubs Day, Day in the Village, All Clubs Ride, Harvest Festival, Festival of Lights, and then open air market, and then planters and benches. So that's what is in here under short-term or immediate. And then under long-term, it says define usage criteria for industrial park, commerce park, re-examine covenants, develop new plan walking path to connect Lakeland Trail to wraparound community and schools. So I got captured the second part when we start talking about the connectedness, for the trails and being a trail town. But I was a little confused about the industrial park and how that interacts with the DDA.
It's in the DDA,
It's in the DDA district.
that's correct. It's that contiguous
Yeah, no,
line.
that I know, but
Okay.
there's no, like, you don't own it anymore, you're not marketing the properties, you're not. Okay, I was a little confused about that, but
And that might be,
Right, this is the new one they're talking about that isn't even approved yet, or?
this has not been approved yet, but from what I
Right.
understand, it's getting close.
Sounds a little, that part sounds a little dated, because, I mean, we used to own, the DDA developed that park, but, yeah,
So
we
is
don't
that
own it
still
anymore, so I
relevant?
don't know
oh,
what.
that's right.
Is that,
Thank
that's
you.
not
I think
relevant to the
it
conversation anymore?
seems kind of outdated, unless, I mean, we could buy the land back that we sold a few years ago and then, bring somebody in, but,
Yeah, no, I don't think you wanna do that.
No. Yeah, no.
Well, let's get down to specifically where it starts talking about central business district, which I'll distinguish, because your central business district is not just your DDA is much larger than that.
Yes,
So when you start talking about the DDA district, you're trying to channel people into the central business district, but you still have opportunities outside, but we're gonna concentrate here for now.
okay.
So objectives, create more civic spaces, regular maintenance, explore how the low interest loan program to facilitate facades. Well, you have a facade program that is grant based, is that correct?
true,
True.
it's not a loan,
It's not a loan, it's a grant. Okay.
I think, I don't know. if
So
we
this
call
is
it
one
grant.
that I question, coordinate a village theme along with critical points of entry. So the theme could be, like you're talking about your wayfinding and standardizing all of that stuff, but I would not suggest you theme the community.
Yeah.
Those don't typically work out well unless you have a reason, to do that. Under actions, this is the objective about attracting, that was an enhanced appearance, so this one is attracting business, it's, marketing strategy to encourage businesses to move into the downtown. Create uses that will create destination retail, restaurant, and entertainment uses while discouraging large-scale discount retail. So that means, no Dollar Generals, no Walmarts, et cetera, in the downtown.
Read that last one again, what's it?
Encourage uses that will create destination, retail, restaurant, and entertainment uses while discouraging large-scale discount retail. So,
Big box stores.
big bucks, yeah, you wanna maintain that, scale.
Let's get rid of
scale.
Dollar General.
It's probably okay where it's at, but you don't want it in your downtown. Concentrate efforts into putting upper floors into use, you've already kinda captured that in there. Promote the village center as a destination, you've already captured that there. Encourage the development of second or third story lofts and apartments, you've already captured that there. Promote loft redevelopment with an annual loft tour. I think you need to, that's something for the back burner for now, because you have to have a critical mass in order to do that. Year-round calendar of events, it sounds like you have that, they had some ideas in the back for new events, but, until you build the capacity where you're able to harness some of these volunteers, events are very volunteer intense, so if you don't have them, I wouldn't suggest doing events other than like your sidewalk shopping things that you are doing. So this one is interesting, consider approaching the DDA to fund a welcome center and barrier-free bathrooms in the downtown. Is that something you guys see yourselves doing?
Welcome center and a barrier-free bathrooms downtown, so we added the bathrooms at the trailhead. And we are talking about wayfinding signs at the trailhead through grant, monies through Park and Rec. So yeah, we kinda talked about, would that be the Welcome Center?
I think they're talking more of a cute building for information
It's a welcome
and
center. The chambers
potties
sometimes
and-
have that function,
Yeah.
where they're the welcome centers, but maybe it's an opportunity to partner with the existing organization. There are some other things here, the pathway system, which is again important, that's under a parks, the parks goals, but it is impactful to the downtown. I highlighted some things with historic preservation that are in the plan, recognize the need to seek alternate uses for structures that are no longer suitable for their original purpose, we call that adaptive reuse. And then develop a historic district for the purpose of identifying historical and architectural resources and providing methods to ensure preservation. There's a whole section on traditional town planning, I'm just gonna skip over that. And then the back, so these were more, concrete steps that the, DDA could take. Downtown needs to be a destination point, the central business district should be walkable, residents are needed downtown. We need architectural standards, we need to develop a market niche, we need to collect market data, we need a signage and gateway program. Develop a plan for the farmer's market, we've talked about that, outside of this meeting. Develop a vacant building window program to say, a door, this is an opportunity here. That could be part of a marketing plan, and then update the DDA plan, help small businesses survive. I don't think those two are related, but, so those are the things that are in the master plan as far as projects. And so if you're having a role in ensuring that this gets moved forward,
Yes.
those are the types of things that we're gonna start talking about now.
Okay.
So they talked a little bit about short term and a little bit about long term, and a lot of this stuff is, you have to admit is gonna be, and recognize is that it's gonna be long term, we're talking 2 years here.
Okay, and let me stop you there on that. So we're at, we need to complete the rest of this meeting. How much more time do you need for your
I have a
part?
few more minutes, I'm gonna get stuck in traffic anyway.
Okay, I just meant, cause we've got.
Oh, you have other
I've got another
business.
appointment, so.
Oh, okay,
Okay,
alright, so how much time do you want me to,
can you do it in 5 minutes? Awesome,
I think so.
sweet.
We can reschedule another meeting
Yeah.
at some point.
I'm gonna blow through the rest of this, guys.
Yeah.
Just, and we did a lot of it downtown earlier with the design committee,
Okay.
so.
One of the things that we wanted to talk about, I just went over a list of stuff, we have all of this ideas to move forward.
Yes.
We know what we're addressing, we know what we wanna focus on.
Okay.
So if we're talking next year, we're gonna start putting your budget together, your fiscal year is April through March?
Is it?
No,
March 1.
March 1 through February. So if we were saying, starting March 1, what are we gonna allocate resources to in 2022? So figure this being March of 2022 through that year.
Yes.
What things do you want to do? We talked about some of these opportunities.
Yes.
We talked about what was in the master plan. So what are some of the things that you want to start planning for and allocating resources for?
I think a big chunk of it is the placemaking, which is
Upgrading
the,
the streetscape, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna just write myself down.
That's number 1 with me.
So.
Is it, or is it the pump track and that's where our money goes and we have no money left to do anything else?
nope, because the pump
How
track.
much
we're-
money do you have right now? I'm just curious. What is your fund balance?
300 and, some odd dollars, $320,000.
Okay.
I'm guessing at that number.
And what are you thinking of for this pump tracks facility? And is that all coming out of the DDA and is
Oh,
that a
no.
commitment?
We
No.
don't know. The pump tracks itself is between $200,000 and $250,000.
Okay.
At this point, we're only committed to $7,000 to $10,000 to get us to the next phase, which in then turn gives us the idea of what the bigger number's gonna be. So right now, we don't know
Okay.
how much the DVH is contributing to that.
Okay. And what
Nor
is
have
your
we voted
annual
on it.
revenue?
Our, 160,
You don't have those numbers in front of us, do we?
but we should know that. Do you,
Well, let's just for argument's sake, say 160.
okay. Does that sound right, John? 129?
Three,
I-
480.
That's me.
I don't know, it sounds
Alright,
like it
so
might
for
be a little
argument's
high.
sake, over the next 3 years, if you want to deplete all resources, which I would not suggest you do, you
Right.
need to have a little bit of fund balance for emergencies, you've got, let's say, $500,000 to work with. So let's be realistic about that.
Okay.
Can't overspend, right? We can't underspend, but you have some resources available to you to spend wisely, hopefully on things that are gonna give you a return. So streetscaping will make your downtown more attractive to that other investment, so that's usually a good approach.
Yes.
You mentioned you had a facade program, is that a viable program, is that being currently used, have
We
most
need
of the
to
buildings?
make it used more.
Okay.
Yes.
So is that something you wanna do next year? Take a
We're-
look at that facade program and say, let's channel some resources into that,
We're currently pursuing at least 2 businesses for that.
okay?
One of them is Judy, and the other one is hopefully the pharmacy.
We want businesses to try to utilize the program. There's a lot involved. I mean, there's an application process
Yeah,
and all
yeah,
kinds
oh
of
yeah,
stuff.
I know,
Okay.
yeah. So, facades are, so you're already working with a couple, they'll be reimbursed, by the time they're done, they would be reimbursed next fiscal year. Not the one you're in, but next year, because by the time they go through an application process and get their contractors and do their work, it's probably gonna be after March 1.
Yeah.
And as I see it, the way we make a better streetscape, they're gonna be more incentivized to make their buildings more beautiful. Because they have something.
Is there anything else that you're talking about on your work plan? Or is there any other projects that you have in the hopper that you don't think you're gonna be able to accomplish this year that will carry over?
The streetscape's gonna carry over.
Yeah, we captured
well,
that.
We have to do the amendment for some of this
Oh,
other
I meant the
stuff.
streetscape's gonna carry over into year 2.
Oh, into year 2 as well. Yeah, you're probably right. Sorry, Molly. If we,
You wanted it done real fast, but it's not gonna happen.
Nothing happens
So,
fast.
yeah, and we don't have any major projects, unless I'm mistaken, guys. Do
Well, I
we?
mean, we want pump track up there.
Right, but it's not even an amendment yet.
Well, just-
So-
But we don't, I mean, that's, our planning comes before we do the amendment. First, we have to know what we wanna do, and then we have to do the amendment. So
Absolutely,
I
so-
think we need to add pump track up there,
Yes.
Right.
unless you,
Alright, but
unless you
you
don't
know
mind doing
what,
it.
here's the thing, if you wanna do an amendment and you're feeling comfortable with the dollar amount, as long as you don't go over that dollar amount, you can include it in your amendment and never do it. Okay,
Okay,
so you can say, let's say the DDAs start and 10 years down the road, they've not done a project, it can be in the plan.
Okay.
Anything can be in the plan. It's just when it's not in the plan
okay,
that you have to add it. So if you
Alright.
put something in the plan and say, we're gonna do a pump tracks, and we're gonna put $50,000 in our plan, and you never do it, it's okay to do that. It's just not okay
okay.
to say, pump tracks isn't in our plan, and we're gonna spend $50,000 on park amenities,
Fire hydrants.
fire hydrants.
Yes, we've allocated $50,000 towards fire hydrants. We have not accomplished those.
Is that gonna be done by March?
No, not all of them.
I guess I'm getting a little lost in what we're doing. I mean, it sounds like, I mean, we've got a whole list of things that we're gonna spend money on next year that are kind of
Commit.
not necessarily committed, but I think probably we would, I mean, we're gonna give so much to a day in the village, right? I mean, we're gonna, I mean.
Events.
Yeah, we can do that as a
We aren't like, I mean, are we developing our budget right now? or
No,
what?
no,
So, okay.
we're not gonna get that detailed. So what we wanna do is have a project list, so when you start working on budget, you can say, these are our budget priorities this year.
Right,
So if we're gonna do streetscaping and facade improvements and fire hydrants and events, I'm suggesting to you that you're probably gonna be tapped out. Doesn't mean you can't talk about other things, it just means that when it comes to allocating the resources, you wanna focus your time and attention on these things
Pump
so that
tracks.
you can stay focused.
Okay, definitely pump tracks. I didn't mean to assist,
Okay,
make
You
it
might
sound
just
like we
wanna
weren't
put
gonna.
park, because there's other things that are going on with the park too.
Okay,
and that's veterans.
yes.
Yeah. And what's going on at veterans?
Molly helped initiate a $300,000, $400,000 Parks and Recreation grant, which hopefully, fingers crossed, will be
Okay, and your match is what?
25.
25
And where's
grand.
that coming from?
DDA. and 20 of it's already allocated.
Okay,
And so we were, and John, I thought we were just doing some of the things that we hadn't accomplished from this year as well.
yeah.
That's why I said fire hydrant,
Yeah.
like camera maintenance,
Yeah.
we were supposed to.
Yeah, so the idea with this is to come overall with a strategic, like a two-year strategic plan. Ultimately, what you should plan on doing when you do this exercise for years to come is to probably think about it in terms of more 3 to 5 years. You just wanted to get your feet wet with planning out ahead a couple of years, so that when you're starting to get all these other ideas coming forward saying, that's a great idea, let's put it in the parking lot, because this year we're focusing on this, these 5 things. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So between the streetscape and facades you can be targeted about, so you could say, these buildings are our candidates for facade programs, let's go talk to those property owners and see if we can compel them to apply.
Yeah, that's what
That's what
Jared
you're
and I are doing.
Okay. So the fire hydrant
Judy.
sounds like you've already committed some money to. Events, it sounds like you've already committed to. Pump tracks is, a maybe, a maybe, okay. So now we move on, so let's say we are able to accomplish all of these things next year, 2022. You're probably gonna have your phase 2 of your streetscape, because there's just a lot of streets and a lot of amenities that need to be upgraded, repaired, or replaced. What other things that might have been mentioned, do you still wanna perhaps market the downtown through events mainly? Is that what you're marketing to
Probably in the next year, yeah, until
the
we
next 2
develop
years?
something.
Do you see yourselves being marketers of the community outside of that, or is marketing gonna be primarily through the event sponsorship? See, these are the types of things that will help you as an organization grow and become more proactive if you can start thinking more down the road. So I know it's a hard exercise today, we covered a lot of material, but that's what I'm trying to get you to start thinking about is most DDAs will have their master plan that they work from.
Okay.
And then they have the TIF and development plan, and that's all about TIF, right? So that's how you capture your TIF, and then TIF is linked with the development plan. So the development plan says, we're gonna capture these tax dollars, and this is how we're gonna spend them.
So
But
what was
then
the
you,
question?
then you also have then the strategic plan, which is everything that we just covered. So it's gonna be about, what do we see ourselves doing? What is our vision for the community? What opportunities do we have? And then what larger scale focus areas do we wanna work with? And then what projects can we work on to help fulfill the goals that we see in our mission statement and our vision statement? So we wanna see bustling upper floor vibrant conversions, maybe we need to think about getting information to people through architectural services to help them understand what the costs are to do this upper floor conversion. Or maybe we have a zoning ordinance issue and maybe we need to channel some resource, and I don't say you do, but I don't know enough about that right now, but I'm saying those are the types of things that if you wanna see these things happen, you have to develop tactics and implement them through your work plans. And that's where your strategic plans normally are 3 to 5 years. Your TIF and development plan is 2039, if I'm not mistaken. And your master plan is a document that is living and breathing. Every 5 years, the planning commission, does a pulse check and says, are we headed in the right direction, or do we need to change directions? So those are all these documents that you have as source material as you prepare your plans. And why we wanna go through all this exercise is, so that you can make sure that your development plan reflects what you wanna do, so that you're not having to update it as much. But then also giving you like a step, so when you wanna recruit new board members, and you say, I don't have anyone with marketing talent on this board, maybe we need to recruit a board member who knows something about marketing. So it will also help you identify your subject matter experts, cause that's what you're supposed to be.
We have a board member with a marketing degree.
Yeah.
Just so,
Yeah, no, I'm
in
just
case you didn't know.
pointing that out as an example, just like,
Yes.
if that's if your next step is, well, we've done all these things, we've got all these second floors occupied, now we need full court press and really do an advanced marketing plan and really shout out to the world that Stockbridge is here.
Okay.
Well, in that point, maybe your events way of marketing, right, becomes, we have a marketing campaign to draw other people into the downtown, and we're gonna spend money in AAA magazine, I'm not saying you are, but
Okay.
That might be a way to do it. So that's what I'm trying to get you to do, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So we don't necessarily have to finish this today,
Okay,
cause I know we're out of time.
okay,
But what I'm gonna do is take what we have and put it in a report and send it to you, and it'll be a draft.
okay,
And so when the draft is, we can review it another time and say, all right, now we have a better understanding and we've absorbed all of this information that we've collected today. And then you can then fill in, you can probably fill in year 2. But if you haven't looked at this plan, I know it's not adopted yet, it's not official, but this is your step 1. This is the vision for the community and how it can grow. So, does that make sense?
yes,
And we all understand our homework.
yes.
Okay.
Can I plug you in? So much, oh my god.
I know it's a lot, and I'm sorry, I should have planned more time.
No, it's just-
I'm happy to come back
It's all starting to tie
Again,
together, so thank you.
if you need it, yeah.
It did help me focus. Yeah,
Yes,
it really did.
and I,
Cause these are things that float through my head, but it's really good to have it.
So if we had more time, I would have said, let's fill in all boards with a bunch of projects and then place dots on the ones that we wanna do, but
that's the next step.
that's probably the next step, yeah.
Yes.
So can I leave this with you, my
Yeah.
supplies?
Can you
'Cause
put that on my
these belong
desk
to
or
you.
our desk?
This
Okay.
is the DDA
Yep.
desk right here?
Yep.
Okay. These belong to you, they do not belong to me.
Okay.
This belongs to you.
Just throw it over there, thank you. Alright guys, need to continue on. You can, yep,